All right, folks. All right. So today we are speaking with Mike Wheeler, who's the Director of Community Services for the City of Cabot in Arkansas, as well as Daniel Achuff, Animal Protective Services Manager at Brandywine Valley SPCA. And we're going to just have a nice conversation about return to home, the animal control officer's perspective. Mike is currently serves as the Director of Community Services for the City of Cabot, Arkansas. In this role, Mike oversees animal services as well as the city's senior center. Prior to beginning his career in animal welfare, Mike served in the U.S. Army as an intelligence analyst before opening his own insurance agency. Mike has worked in animal services since 2009 and is currently certified as an Animal Control Officer Level 2 by the Arkansas State Animal Control Association. Mike holds certifications in Animal Cruelty Investigations from Colorado State University, Animal Fighting Cruelty Investigations from the University of Arkansas Criminal Justice Institute, and serves as a specialized law enforcement instructor, animal control for the Arkansas Commission on Law Enforcement Standards and Training. Daniel Achuff became the Animal Protective Services Manager for Brandywine Valley SPCA in November of 2019. He's been with the Brandywine Valley SPCA since 2015 when he was hired as an animal control officer and became a Humane Society police officer in 2016. Before Daniel was a humane officer, animal control officer, he spent 7.5 years as an emergency veterinary technician where he excelled in caring for animals. Daniel grew up in Texas where his mother and father started and ran an animal sanctuary for abandoned and abused exotics for 14 years. Daniel grew up caring for tigers, lions, cougars, timber wolves, and many exotic animals that were abused or abandoned by zoos or owners. Daniel also joined the Army National Guard, which was a goal of his since he was a kid and received an honor graduate in basic training. Since then, Daniel has accomplished investigating over 1,200 cruelty investigations and has a 96% conviction rate that he is very proud of. Daniel is currently a board member of the National Animal Care and Control Association and continues to be the voice for the animals who do not have one. And that is known as NACA. And I will give a shout out to Jerica, who helped organize this session too at NACA. So thanks for that. Daniel, maybe let's have you, since you were in that real virtual world and we're not seeing you, or Mike, if you have an action plan of how you all are going to talk today, maybe I'm going to leave it up to you and share your conversation about your experiences, and then, let me know if you want me to filter any questions from the crowd.
I think we'll go ahead and let Dan start first since he can't see anybody, and then I can come in after, and then we can go to questions. Sound good to you, Dan?
Yeah, sounds fine.
Okay.
So yeah, whenever I came into the Brandywine Valley SPCA 7 years ago, they talked to me and notified me that we do, what's called return to field in our area, and I wasn't sure what that was at first. Never really heard of it, even when I was in the vet tech field. Once they started having me, releasing, all the feral felines back in the field where they were found. At first, I was a little hesitant because I kept getting eyes from people and wondering what I was doing. And some people would even, start yelling at me, "Hey, why are you doing that?" And it wasn't until I got to learn more about, what the return to field was, where I realized, hey, we're a no-kill shelter, and this is how we keep the no-kill shelter and, not having to need to kill, feral felines because it wasn't their fault for being born outside. As I've been doing it for the past, 7 years now, it's been actually awesome. A lot of the township and boroughs that we contract with, which if anyone on here listening is not familiar with Pennsylvania, we have counties, and then each county there's township and boroughs. So there's no animal control, state job here. So it's all contracted out through either private organizations or, shelters. So we contract with, each township and borough, and a lot of township and boroughs have been extremely excited with us doing this because even though, they have residents calling all the time about, like, the feral males, urinating on people's houses or cars, or tearing up their property, or going after their animals while they're walking them, getting them spayed, neutered, vaccinated, and then re-released has helped the township boroughs deal with the resident issues by contracting with us. And even though some township boroughs aren't happy with us releasing them back on there, they realize that it's not going to cause a bigger issue, because they're not going to be able to procreate anymore and cause huge feral cat colonies. There are some people who catch the feral cats on their property and they don't want them returned back on their property, which is not a big deal. We usually tell people that, we don't have to release them back on their property. We release them within a 2-mile radius. And we let them know that they could return, which they said is fine as long as, you release them somewhere. If they return, they return. Other than that, we've had a great experience with the community cat program with returning the field.
That's great. And a little bit about Cabot's Return on the Field program. We actually have a community cat program. We wrote it in our ordinance 3 years ago now, 2022, 2019, 3 years ago. So ours is the same but different. We don't trap. We believe that if cat's outside, then that's where it belongs. So there's no reason for us to trap it. However, if it is some stray brought into us, or a citizen has trapped it, we bring it in, we spay it, neuter it. My officers the next morning between 8 and 10, out full uniform, full daylight, in their vehicles, they're taking it back out and putting it right back on the street where it was found. We just have no reason for cats to be inside. It's not the cat's fault that over the last 50 years we've changed our minds about this and decided that they should be inside cats. So my officers, that's what we do. It's simple, it's easy. We've had no harsh statements from anybody in the public. We didn't put out a big press release when this came in. When this new ordinance came in, we just educate them one at a time. As they come in, we educate them, and then as my officers go back out, we educate them. It's been very positive. Of course, our cat deaths in the shelter have gone down tremendously. The health of animals has increased tremendously. And who are we to say that semi-feral cat, or with what seems to be feral cat, doesn't belong to 18 different people in that subdivision? Because I promise you, they all feed them. So it's been wonderful. Our ordinance has been great. We don't have to hold cats anytime at all. As soon as they can be spayed and neutered, they can be released, which is different. We usually have a 5-day holding period prior to that, which we all know how cats and stress in the shelter environment go. But my officers have been great. And like I said, we don't hide anything. We're not doing it in the secret of night. We don't have a rescue group of volunteers coming in and doing it. My officers are doing it. And it's been great public relations for us. It gives my officers a chance to educate people when they're in the field and they're releasing. Every one of them, our cats are microchipped to that street, unless we find out later that it had an owner. So I don't care. It doesn't matter if it's semi-feral or friendly. If we get a hold of it, it's being spayed, neutered, ear-tipped, microchipped, and put back out on the street. When we microchip to that street, nuisance cats, depends on if you like cats or not, or whether or not they're a nuisance. So we work mostly with the deterrence of trying to keep them out of your flower beds, what you can do, things of that nature. That's why they're also microchipped to a street, so that if somebody picks it up and they bring it in, because it's a nuisance, we know we can put it right back out where it came from. Other than that, I mean, it's very basic for us. It's an everyday thing. My officers, they always, when it starts out, any type of new program, that you get that hesitation, because why are you putting that 4-month-old kitten back out? Well, because that 4-month-old kitten was able to be spayed and neutered. That's why. So it goes right back out where it was found. And then you have the public who always wants to ask questions. Well, that poor cat, it's cold outside. Well, it was cold outside 150 years ago, and they survived. 200 years ago, 500 years ago. I'm sure even in Egypt, they had cold weather. So there's no reason to keep that. But I will tell you that what I see is we have a lot of people who, when they do a new program, they throw out a big Facebook post. Oh, this is what we're doing. Look at us. Well, when you ask people to look at you, that's what they're going to do. And you're going to nothing but keyboard warriors and hate on you because they don't understand. So the biggest part of our success has been simple, no big Facebook post, educate them one at a time. City council's happy, mayor's happy, citizens are happy.
So I'll jump in and ask questions if that's okay with you, Mike.
Sure.
Talk about numbers of cats. You talk about the number of cats in your facilities going way down. You know, what sort of volume were you talking about that you are doing return to field?
Prior to this, we would have anywhere from 50 to 100 cats in the shelter at a time. Now the only cats we have in the shelter are 3 to 6, and they're sick or injured cats or owner surrendered cat waiting on adoption. But the majority of them, the only cats we pick up are sick or injured. So even if one of our community cats somebody calls us and it's sick, we go back out and pick it up. But we're talking 3 to 6 at a time in the shelter. And
so
I can't keep an adoptable cat.
In the course of the year, how many would you be doing spaying and neutering and returning?
We bring in and release approximately, well, last year we did 893, I think. So, yeah. But that's 893 cats that I didn't have to worry about adopting.
Right, for sure.
Treating because they all got upper respiratory, massive ringworm outbreaks, all that stuff that happens in a stressful shelter environment.
And then Daniel, I'm going to go to you one more quickly, but let me just ask, in terms of your complaint calls about community cats, have those numbers gone down?
As far as like people complaining about us releasing the cats?
Actually, this one's for Mike. In terms of your complaint calls, have they gone down?
I wouldn't say they've gone down. We still have people complaining about cats but they're more easily handled now. Instead of now saying, well, we'd have to come out and trap them, this, that, and the other, we send an officer out to evaluate while the officer's out there. Then we can go through deterrence if it's a neglect thing, or not neglect, but a nuisance. We can go through that. So we're still getting the same number of cat calls, but we're not having to bring them in, and we are educating the public as we go. So what we'll see now on Facebook, when somebody points out this big-headed orange tomcat is over in the neighborhood, before where everybody would say call animal services, call animal control, now we have armies of citizens that respond saying, we're sure that cat has a house around there somewhere. You might contact the shelter and see if they can scan it for a chip. Mm-hmm. And we love it when one of them has a tipped ear. And that comes across because the whole community understands what a tipped ear means now.
Right. Daniel, how many cats are you dealing with on an annual basis for return to field?
Return to field, we're probably up in the hundreds yearly. Our shelter usually carries anywhere from 30 to probably 100 cats all the time. A lot of the kittens that we get in from feral cat colonies, depending on how young they are, we do try to get them in the fosters to see if we can work with them, adopt them out. That way they don't have to live outside. But in the unfortunate case where the kitten's just completely feral, we do still re-release. But our officers, usually we release anywhere from probably 200 to 400 cats a year. And then it would be more, but a lot of the public who helps out with our community cat program tend to trap cats themselves, bring them in to our clinic. They get spayed and neutered, and then once they're ready to be released, they come pick them up and they release them for us, which helps out a lot.
And what about your complaint calls? I think you've been, doing this since 2015, 2016, somewhere in that ballpark. So have your complaint calls for cats gone down over time?
I would say they have. I remember when I first started, we would get complaints about us releasing the cats back in the area. And after we educated the community member or the resident about, what happens with, the return to field cats, on how they're not going to procreate, they're not going to spread diseases anymore. They tend to be a little bit happier. So since then, I would say even this year, I haven't really had any complaints about people, calling us and not liking us return to field. Whenever people do call and say, hey, I have some feral cats in my area, what's the process? What do you guys do? And when we go over it with them, like our return to field community cat program, they're not the happiest about it. They say, well, I'd rather not have them released, but if they're friendly and, we can work with them to be adopted, we'll tell them we'll adopt them out. But if not, again, we will release them, and we'll tell them they don't have to be released back on your property, but they are released within a 2-mile radius. And, there's a chance they can come back, which they said, they're still not the happiest about it, but they're happier that, that we at least try.
Right. I'm just trying to continue to set the stage as to what your communities are like. And this is, for folks that know me, I do this like as part of my community cat pyramid sort of community analysis, just trying to understand scale. Because, Mike, you can say you're handling like, 800 cats a year, but you could be in a community of 10,000 people. So what's the population of Cabot, Arkansas?
Right at 30,000.
About 30,000. Okay. And then do you offer or are spay neuter services available for the general public at an affordable, accessible price?
Well, we have a low-cost spay neuter clinic at our shelter every Tuesday and every other Thursday. It's once they not low income, it's open for everybody, but when I say it's cheap, but it's really not, it's $80.
Right.
But to have a cat spayed at any of our 3 veterinarians in the city is $249. And it
Lucky.
keeps,
You're lucky.
it goes up every month, it seems like. So to me, that's crazy, because they can go an hour and a half away and they're doing $25 spay and neuters, but we don't have that luxury in my area. So we have a vet that comes in, contracts, and it's $80, but every Tuesday and every other Thursday we have a spay and neuter.
Okay. All right. And I could, one other thing I like to do is the math of how many of the sort of affordable spays and neuters that the owned public is getting, and layering that on top of what the community cats are getting, so you can really get a layer of the impact, because the owned cat community is going to be your feeder into your community cat numbers if they're not sterilized.
Right.
Honestly, they're the where the safety net needs to come into play. They're really, it's a nervous area, put it that way, if they're not spayed and neutered at the owned cat level. So, okay, Daniel, I'm going to put you on the hot spot now. Population that you serve.
So we, like I said, we do 2 counties, and one of them is Chester County, which the population just for Chester County is almost around 500,000 people. And there's only like, out of the, I think there's like 45, 50 township boroughs in Chester County, there's only like 2, 3 that we don't do. And then in Delaware County itself has almost 750,000 people, but we only service about 13, 14 township boroughs. So I don't have the, numbers per township or borough that we service on how many people, but we are an open shelter as well. So a lot of people that aren't in our contracted areas, they bring the animals to our shelter, and we still do them. So so we get people from Montgomery County, Chester County, Delaware County, even some from Jersey and other states. So we do a lot.
Right. So your spay neuter services, you offer significant spay neuter services for the owned community?
Owned community, yeah, we do. I think for neuters it's around like $40, $50, and then for spays it's around 100. And the owned animals, or the town, or the people that bring in cats that are feral from out of contracted areas, they're made aware that when they drop them off, they also will get a call in the next day to pick them up so they can release them, which they usually have no problem with. So yeah.
Have either of you been impacted by the veterinary technician general staffing shortage issues over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I would say we've had a small amount of techs, leave, or been hard to even find techs to come to the shelter environment, only because as an SPCA nonprofit, we can't afford to pay techs the amount of money that they deserve and the amount of money they can get going to like a private practice. So for us, it's been a little difficult, but right now we're actually good on the amount of techs and surgery techs that we require.
And in our area, we don't have our own veterinarian. That's the only issue we have, the inability to hire a veterinarian because of the shortage. But we've been fortunate enough to have the same vet contracted since 2012. Now they drive an hour away to come to us, which is part of the reason why the cost is so much on it. But we've been fortunate enough to at least have the contracted vet every Tuesday and every other Thursday. But that's also limits us in what we can do, because we only get 4 hours every Tuesday and 4 hours every other Thursday.
Got a couple questions in here. When you are getting information from the public, how do you ensure, and I'll ask this question of Mike first, and we can go over to Daniel. How do you ensure that you do trust and feel that you're really getting accurate information from them?
Well, I have to assume people aren't always lying to us. We hate to think the entire world is nothing but liars. Do we have those? Yes, we do. Do we prosecute those? In Cabot, Arkansas, we prosecute if we find out you found the cat somewhere else, because it's in my ordinance. It says I can do that. So we have you sign your form saying, your stray verification form saying exactly where you found it. If you live in a total another city, then you'll have to just kind of through conversation explain to us why you happen to be at our Walmart. Okay, and we don't drop them back out at Walmart. We know there's no colonies out there. Or why you're on a street that's in the middle of a subdivision in our city when you don't live there. But it's a conversation thing. It's not an interrogation process. You just don't. It just doesn't work. But we have to believe that people are truthful until we can prove otherwise.
Daniel, do you have any thoughts?
I'm kind of agreeing with Mike there. It's kind of hard to, in a perfect world, we would believe everyone with everything they said, but, we're not in a perfect world. And as an animal control officer and a humane police officer, like, we get lied to all the time. So, we kind of, as far as like the feral cats or, a cat pickup that we get a call about, we kind of have to take it for the word. Unless, once in a while, if I get a fuzzy feeling that like I don't think this person's telling me the truth, like I go on social media sites, and look this person up, and when I find them, see if like, hey, you have the same cat back in like 4 years ago, you're playing with them, in your house, so you sure you got this cat from this area because it looks just like the cat you brought in. We get those once in a great while. When I get a fuzzy feeling, or if one of my officers get a fuzzy feeling, we'll do some research. But other than that, if we don't get that feeling, or if this cat obviously is like, completely feral, like we don't, interrogate them. So we kind of take them for their word.
Next question, I'll start with Mike, then we'll go to Daniel. When you spay neuter the cats, do you also vaccinate for rabies and distemper?
We do. We spay and neuter, vaccinate for rabies and distemper, FRP, and we also do we microchip every cat.
And tip.
And tip, yes, most definitely tip.
Daniel?
Yeah, same thing. We neuter, spay, vaccinate for rabies, distemper, FRP. We do the ear tip. As far as the microchip goes, I don't believe they do it for every single feral cat. Maybe in certain colonies that they might do it, but other than that, we don't really do the microchip, just because once they're ear tips, it's kind of hard to deny that this cat's already been spayed or neutered. So.
Yeah, for clarification on our microchipping, the reasons why we microchip, it's so that if I get this cat picked up again, I know where it goes back to. And then hopefully it's one of those that are owned by 18 people, and somebody comes forward and says, why is my cat injured? Because they see that ear tip, and then I can put their information on the microchip, and now I know who owns it. But that's worked well for us. But it is $6 of city money that we have to account for, so
Right.
it's always a budget issue.
Do you, either of you, know if you tattoo at the spay incision site?
We do not. No, my vet doesn't do tattooing. He tried once.
We don't either.
Big
Yeah,
hog press with
so
the
then
machine.
you don't have to reopen up a already spayed cat. So, because sometimes you can't see the spay incision if you retrap a cat, and I mean, it's got to be tipped and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
but-
with the tip and the microchip, they should be able to get a hold of
right,
to see that it's spayed.
the information, and then they're not going to open up the
Correct.
cat again another time. But so that's the tattooing at the spay incision's another component that seems to be coming into fashion. I'd love to know, other people, if you're out there, if you get the cats tattooed at the spay incision. Okay, so just let me know in the chat there, in the questions box. We got the 2 mile radius conversation here, Daniel, coming your way, dropping on.
All right.
It's the end of the day. We got people here wondering. So tell us, who came up with that idea? Isn't it going to be stressful on a cat being dropped off in unfamiliar territory? And so just a little bit more on the methodology around that one.
Gotcha. So when I first started, we were just told to, release somewhere in the area. There wasn't like a mile or, a certain distance to drop off. They just said, just find somewhere close by and drop it off. So I thought of the idea of doing 2 miles because, I mean, as you know, like a feral cat, even in a colony that they stay at, they can travel 5-10 miles away searching for food or whatever they're, going out for. So I figured 2 miles is a good distance because it'll be far enough from the person's house where maybe he'll return, maybe he'll find a new colony and stay there. But, if it does return, the person was made aware of. But I was the one that kind of, decided I'm just going to tell people 2 miles because I'm not going to release the cat in an area in some other county or township or borough that's 50 miles or 100 miles away, just because it doesn't know the area. It's already been stressed out. It's still kind of confused on what happened. So I don't want it to, kind of go into a flight mode where it's just too scared to even go anywhere. So the 2 mile radius of where the cat was found, it's going to know the area. It's going to remember the smells, and it'll either go back to the colony or find a new colony. But 2 miles, I think, is a good distance.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to try and come up with some guidelines between what's like a return zone versus a relocation zone. Because when you're relocating ferals, we've got this whole, like, you've got to cage them for 3 to 6 weeks, when they have to acclimate and you have to be bonded with your feeder. There's all this whole routine. And at that point, then you get 50% chance that they really actually stick around once you let them out anyway. So there's this like whole relocation, and then you're just returning. So what's that geographic range, whatever I don't think anybody's looked at that, but I think it'd be kind of a cool idea to try and figure that out. All right, so if you get a feral mama with kittens from animal control that came in as a stray, should it be released back to the area it was found after spay or at a new location? I would say release it back, wouldn't you?
We release ours right back where it came from. If it was found in
Same.
1801 North Lincoln, it's going right back to 1801 North Lincoln. Yeah. After the spay.
Okay. All right, I'm just scanning through questions here just to make sure I've got everybody covered here. If you do question the 2 mile radius, what would you think would be the range? So if you have an opinion on the 2 mile statement, I'd be curious to see how far you would go, because I know that in the earlier presentation we talked about having cat a couple blocks over, moved a couple blocks over. And so we definitely have these scenarios where we have to move cats around. whether it's through buildings being demolished or what. So, you know, how far away. So,
I hate to think it depends on the situation. One example is last year I had a cruelty investigation. A person was being evicted. They said there was like 20, 30 cats inside the house. And when we got there was over 80. All of them still completely feral. The lady admitted that she just finds the cats outside, takes them inside, and there was probably every single room had about 1.5 inches of fecal matter everywhere. So these cats were still feral. She didn't try working on them at all. So after she surrendered them, because technically, even though they're feral, they were in her property and she was caring for them. She's the technical owner. She surrendered them over. So what we did was, even though a lot of them were inside this house for so long that they were still feral, but that's kind of all they knew. So what we did was we got a hold of some of our community cat people that, you know, find feral cats or have a cat colony that they take care of with the animals by having like houses built, automatic feeders, stuff like that. So we contacted some of ours and they were more than happy to help. And some of them were probably like 20, 30 miles away. So what we did was we brought, you know, these cats, the cats that we were able to basically kind of work with and get to the adoption point, we actually kept and found homes for them. And they did all well. But the ones that weren't, we split them up, took them to these community cat, you know, people that take care of colonies, and we like placed them in these barns where the feeder, the food was, and we kind of kept an eye on them there, as well as the person who takes care of that colony. And they all have been thriving in the new colonies that they were released in and doing really well.
Yeah, but it sounds like
I would say that's more of a relocation.
Yeah, more of a relocation where they were allowed to be acclimated. And I bet you the other thing too, relocating bonded cats, like a group that that helps keep them together, if you know what I'm saying. So that,
oh yeah, of course.
You know, so that.
But I would say, like I said, it's kind of a depends on the situation kind of thing. Where are you going to be relocating all the animals or the cats, or are you just, you know, releasing them in the area? So it depends on the situation.
Yep. Certainly depends on the situation for sure. Any other comments that you might have, you know, is from both being in the role of animal control and for some reason, you know, not for some reason, I can think of many reasons, but, you know, sort of like the community cat world and animal control world have not played in the same sandbox much, right? Now you're smiling there, Mike, so I can see.
Well, that's because it's because, you know, in any world, community cat world, rescue world, animal control, you know, they've been at odds for decades, and it's an uneducated reason. It has to be. I think it's that our ACOs don't fully understand what community cat people do, as well as rescue folks, and vice versa. The biggest thing is for my officers, and my officers love their jobs now. They really do, even though they thought they were going to hate it when I told them they were going to start releasing cats in the middle of the day in uniform on a city truck right in front of the same person's house they got it from. They really do love their jobs now because they understand why the cats need to be released, and so that helps. But it also helped that we could change the ordinance, because if we couldn't have changed the ordinance that allowed us to release cats back into the city, then my officer's hands would still be tied. And that's a big thing with ACOs and other groups, is animal control officers are bound by state statutes, by city statutes, by county ordinances. So sometimes they are very limited in what they can do. And it's where some groups don't understand that, but also officers don't give on that either. They just say, I can't do it, without any explanation. So I think if we could all get together and just talk, I mean, what a world this would be if we could just sit down and talk about things. I think that's where the biggest difference comes from, is that everybody's protective of what they do, and nobody wants to step outside their comfort zone and sit and ride along with the animal control officer or go with the animal care colony tech, caretaker and go out there and see what they're doing every single day of their life. So anyway, I think I might have got off point there, but I'm off my soapbox now.
It's good. Daniel, any comments from you?
I'm right with Mike. If we could talk and work things out, and the community could understand where, what's going on and why we're doing what we do, then I think, it'd be a lot better.
Yeah, and to that point, I think, that we have to let pride get out of the way as far as animal control officers go. Just because my officers have a badge doesn't mean they're the utmost authority. So as animal control officers, we have to step outside of that role and seek to understand, because we're not experts on cats. When we start, they give you a catch pole in a truck and say, go pick up a dog. They don't say anything about cats. Cats come along as they come. So,
what sort of, I know that NACA has issued a statement about community cats. What sort of training is out there for animal control officers with regards to community cats, either on the local scale or the national scale? Like,
very little. I mean, NACA issued their statement. Our state association, which I'm the president of that, we reciprocated that. We put it back out at my city level. But as far as training, if it wasn't for you folks and Monica Friend and I wouldn't have any idea about community cats. I was the officer when I started, and I was sent to feral cat colonies to trap and euthanize twice a week. That was my job. Horrible job. But now I know better. And I didn't know then. And I think most of your animal control officers just do not know. And there's not training out there at a national level just on community cats. And I think there's also there's a division on what is community cats. When most people hear community cats, they think TNR. In my city, when we talk about community cats, that's any cat that's outside.
Four paws on the asphalt. That's my thing.
If they're out there, I think there's a big division, because everybody thinks, well, community cats are all TNR and cat colonies, and not in my city. We have like 3 cat colonies in the entire city as far as colonies. The rest of these thousands of cats that are out there are people's cats. So they're all community cats. They all benefit the community in some way or another.
Right. Daniel, what's your thought?
Yeah, there's not much training. My training was all in-house. So I got the training at my job. There wasn't like a webinar or something that they set me to that for training for anything. It was basically like, hey, this is what our community cat program is. Learn it, live it, love it. So, and I mean, I kind of did. I did, learn it, and I'm living it, and I do love it because it helps. It helps with reducing the amount of animals that are the amount of cats that are euthanized, all the time. When some places don't know what to do with them, they automatically think, oh, it's a feral cat, it's not a community cat. Well, it's hanging around someone's house in a community. Someone's feeding it, because that's why it's staying there. So it's either someone's cat and someone just thinks it's feral, or it's a cat that someone in that area is feeding and it's become part of that community. So, that cat, doesn't need to be euthanized just because, maybe it was abandoned when it was a kitten. Maybe its mom or grandmother or, however long ago mother was abandoned, and it became feral down the line. But, no cats, outside deserve to be euthanized just because they're outside. So, yeah, I think there needs to be some type of training module so, people can be educated and learn, the process and how to do it.
Just for perspective for us insulated cat folks that are here, how much training do you get about dog issues and handling dogs? Mike?
Well, in the ACO world, that's all the training. I mean that's it. Most of the NACA training, for example, is animal handling and dogs. There's a small section on cats in there. I'll be first, and I'm on the board, so I can talk bad about it if I have to. You know, that we're revamping all of our training, and that's something we have to look at. Is cats are now a big part. Matter of fact, in shelters now, it's cats and dogs are becoming equal on the number of animals trying to come in the door, where it's always been mostly dogs. So, but at our state associations, I mean, if you all the national trainings you go to, it's, you know, if you go to ACTS classes or any of these other classes for being ACO, then most everything is centered around dogs, because that's where we were formed. Animal control officers were originally for, if you want to say insulated cat people. I've become a cat person somehow, but it's okay. We were brought forth on this earth, as far as ACOs were, to control rabies in dogs. That's how we become into existence. Cats didn't become an issue until the 70s, when people started deciding they didn't want cats running around the cities. So our life has always been dogs, but training, I venture to say 85% or more is dog based.
Well, and in many communities, you have the history of being known as the dog officer, right? So
dog catcher, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I've heard animal control officers in Massachusetts tell me, well, I just don't deal with cats, right? It's just, that's not my required, and understanding there's a lot of limited resources. I mean, this person was covering 3 towns and was being paid $15,000 a year on a very part-time salary, you know, to cover 3 communities. So understandably, there's only so far that they can go to. And so, as someone said in one of the comments, it takes a village, and it's a public-private village, not a full, you know, just saying, oh, it has to be all the public, you know, money, you have to be publicly funded, but they shouldn't all be private. It's a combination of things. I don't know, Daniel, if you have any comments on how much on that you know, you're exposed to more training about dogs than cats.
Well, as an ACO and humane officer, I would say, yeah, probably more dogs, you know, training than cats. But, you know, on the humane side, you know, we do have quite a bit of training as far as, like, you know, cat handling and stuff. Just because a lot of times when we go to a hoarding case, we got to catch some cats in the house. And there's been houses where I had to go and there was 120 plus cats in one little house. So you have to get good catching them. So that, and to me, I think Pennsylvania, my state, is starting to get close to the area of, you know, recognizing cats, you know, and working with them, because up until about a year or two ago, you know, they considered cats to be wild animals. They weren't even considered domestic. So any cat that was feral was considered a wild animal in Pennsylvania. It has since changed about a year or two ago when they decided that, you know, they are now considered, you know, feral cats. So a feral cat 2 years ago was, no, that's not a feral cat, that's a wild animal. Now it's a feral cat, because I think just a lot of legislation went through that, you know, well, why, whenever you catch this so-called wild cat, that, you know, you label it domestic short hair or domestic medium hair, first word being domestic. So it has changed, and it's slowly changing, but I'm hoping, you know, Pennsylvania starts getting more, Pennsylvania starts recognizing cats and feral cats more, so hopefully we can get that training and to people.
So
and I think you find that a lot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think you find that a lot, because in Arkansas, our game and fish, when we rewrote our ordinance, stating that cats belonged in the community and would be released immediately, the state agency, the state game and fish, come out publicly against us, because cats are an invasive species in Arkansas and should all be eradicated, is what they say. So we have a little Cabot fight in the state, and of course Cabot won because it's our city. But I think you see that more often than not across this country, is that your state wildlife agencies would like all cats to be inside and have nothing to do with the outdoors.
Last question. I could keep going for another half an hour, but I am not going to. But last question, because just because you are animal control officers and you're in this field, thoughts and opinions. We haven't talked about this today, and I wrote it down actually during Ed Bach's his presentation earlier and I didn't get to it. So of course I have to ask, there's always been a lot of conversation around cat licensing laws and that kind of thing. So I have to touch upon this, just, you know, what are your thoughts or opinions or positions about, and I don't even know if NACA has a position on it or not, about cat licensing laws? Mike.
Well, NACA hasn't come out with a position on it. I will tell you, we still have cat licensing laws in Cabot for pet cats, and that's indoor cats only. If they're outdoor cats, then we know they're ear tipped, and then we know they've had the rabies vaccine. But our licensing follows Rabies Control Act. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, if you get bit by your cat, you don't have proof of rabies. If I know it's licensed, I know it's good on rabies. And that's the only reason why we have cat licensing. It has nothing to do with a moneymaker. We make like $320 a year on cat licensing in the city of Cabot. It's more of a hassle than it's worth. But that's the whole licensing reason for cats or dogs. It simply follows the length of the rabies vaccination, so we know if they're current or not, without having to try to get a hold of a vet on a Saturday after hours or any time other than that.
Daniel?
I wish we had that same link, Mike, because first of all, I never even heard of cat licensing. So that's kind of new to me. Dog licensing, I mean, you can, down here or up here in PA, you can go to any like courthouse, shelter, pet store, get a dog license. You don't have to show any proof of rabies. So I have a program where I can learn to see and make sure someone is up to date on their dog license, but it doesn't tell me if they're up to date on rabies, which I wish there was some type of way for PA to kind of get on that, so we can do that, because that would make our lives a lot easier doing animal control. But to me, I would say it's the same kind of as far as like dog license. You know, it's just it's a way to kind of keep track of how many dogs are kind of in that area. But then again, not everyone buys dog licenses or, you know, gets away with it. So I would say with, you know, making a national or something, you know, cat licensing, I don't think it would really be worth it at all.
Well, in 13 years, I've written one citation for not having cat license, and that's only because the guy cussed me out. And the judge threw it out when I got to court. So, you know, I don't want to be the guy in front of a court for citation over a cat license. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't think it has, you know, caught on as a big trend. And I'm not stating that I'm supporting cat licensing. I just am wondering what people's opinions. I'm of a no opinion realm, honestly, just because I feel like it's another one of those things that you pull it out of your hat if you need to. You know, as you say, if there's a situation you need a speed pass to be able to get a situation resolved, you say, well, they don't have their rabies vaccines, so therefore, you know, we need to, you know, address the cat situation or whatever. I mean, there's, you know, cats or, you know, pets as property. There's a lot of worries about stealing people's cats and putting them up for adoption, and there's a lot of that worry out there too. And I know in Massachusetts they value cats at $35, so there's not a lot of loss. So, you know, you're not gonna, if by accident you trap an owned cat after you've done your due diligence, done your best efforts to determine that the cat is not owned, and if you happen to by chance trap somebody's cat, at least I know in Massachusetts there's not a huge threat of legal repercussions. Yeah, you might get your story on the front page of the newspaper. That might be a problem, but there, you know, so there are those challenges, but, you know, there's this cost benefit analysis out there too, which is, we want to make sure those 4 paws that are out on the asphalt are getting spayed and neutered for sure. That's, you know, so anyway. All right, well, we have 3 minutes. Any closing comments, Mike or Daniel, before we close out for the day?
I'll just go real quick, Daniel, let you finish up. I just want to thank y'all for letting us be here. I know that ACOs are not always involved in these conversations, so I do appreciate it. Anything we can do at NACA, by all means, let us know. We would love to collaborate. We're collaborating with Maddie's fund on some university courses and things of that nature. So anything we can do to help assist the community cat environment, I would love to get on. So, but thank y'all very much.
Excellent. Daniel, anything you want to share? I'm sorry we didn't get your picture today.
It's okay, and I apologize. I wish I was at my work today, but I'm not. But no, I just want to thank you guys all for letting us be here. Again, like Mike said, ACOs don't get a whole lot of talk time with like organizations like you guys to talk about this stuff. But if you guys ever have any questions, Stacy can give you guys my my information, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And again, like Mike said, love to talk to us about with NACA as well.
That's great. Well, and thank you both for taking time on a Sunday to chat with us, and we'll make sure we get this shared far and wide. So it was a great conversation. Really appreciate it again today.